Hi everyone, welcome to Animal Communication. I'm very excited to be here tonight and I hope that a few people can join me. So I'm just starting with introducing myself. My name is Dagmar. I have been doing animal communication for quite a while now, and it is something that is very important for me. The animals are very important to me and probably a lot of people, to you guys as well. And that's why I want to bring the word out there so people can understand their animals. Oh, hello. Hi, how are you? It's really nice to see people come in and listen, because it is something that everyone should be aware of, that we can do that, and it is something that just helps immensely with our animals to understand them better. So I would like to just start by introducing myself. So as I said before, my name is Dagmar. I'm originally from Switzerland and I live in Australia now, in South Australia, on a beautiful farm. I have got, I've got a dog, a cat, 12 chickens and 7 horses are with me. So animals are a big part in my life and always have been, even though when I was little I wasn't able to have animals because my parents weren't that keen on the animals. But as soon as I was old enough to make that decision, I started collecting those beautiful creatures. So I've always had a connection with animals and I always felt that I was close to them, but to actually ask them questions and really have a conversation like we have, I didn't really think that that was possible. I knew that we can guess, and I always thought I knew what my animals felt and how I'm feeling, but to actually be able to understand them as well, that was just something that I thought, wow, that would be amazing if we can do that. So that really got me into researching and studying and finding out what we can do to actually achieve that. And I've done courses overseas, and the story is actually quite funny. I was working for a horse trainer here in South Australia, and I was doing courses in Switzerland, and when I came back one year I was telling him what I was doing, and he said to me, well, if you believe in it, you're stupid. And I said, okay, fair enough, that's your opinion, that's fine. And well, we ended up having a horse that should have performed well and it didn't perform well. So he said to me, well, why don't you go and speak to the horse? So I went in my bedroom and I had a chat to the horse, and there was no obvious signs that there was any, there's no signs that there was obviously a problem there. So there was no lameness, there was absolutely no signs that there was anything wrong with the horse. So I connected to the horse, and the horse was telling me that she was dislocated in her right hip. It just felt like the hip joint was out of place. So I spoke to my boss and I said, look, you better take the horse to the chiropractor because the hip joint feels like it's dislocated and we need to go and get that fixed. So we went to the chiropractor. I had my little list in the pocket with all the things that I had received from the horse, what we needed to do. And the chiropractor checked the horse. We didn't say anything. And when the chiropractor was finished, my boss was standing there going, so tell me what's wrong with the horse. And he came up with exactly that. He said, well, she's out in her right hip. The joint's out of place and we need to treat that. And there was also a few other things as well. And so he worked on those areas and we fixed that problem. And of course, my boss couldn't believe what had happened. So he actually told the chiropractor all about me. And from then on, it was a bit of a game that every time we would go back to the chiropractor, I would have my list in the pocket with all the things that I received from the animals, and he would find exactly the same things. And it went to that point where he said to me, well, why don't you just tell me what's wrong with the horses and I can just treat them because you get it right every time. And we then went on and I communicated with all his horses and the results were just amazing. And so he was actually the one that said, you know, you really have to go and make this a business because you can help so many animals. And I mean, to be honest, back then I never had the intention to do that, but he was just right. You know, if I can help animals and owners understand their animals, because sometimes the behavior just doesn't tell us what is really going on inside the animal. And if I can help them to solve the problems and fix the problems, then I'm just doing the right thing by the animals. And so he was actually the one that went to all his clients and told them about me and said, you know, if you really want to know what's going on in your animals, you need to go and get Dagmar to speak to your animals. And if you do go to my website, you will actually find a letter of a testimonial of him on my website if you want to read up what he had to say about me. So yes, that's how I got into the business. And so I will tell you a little bit about animal communication, how it actually does work, because a lot of people are not aware what it is and how it works and the possibilities you have, you know, how you can help animals with it. So today I just want to talk a little bit about that. Hi Anna, and I would like to just give you the information because, as I said, a lot of people are not even aware that we do have that tool, and it is just amazing how specific they are when they tell us things and how we then can address those issues. So a little bit about animal communication. So animal communication is something where you can give animals a voice, and that is my mission in life, that I want to be able to help animals to make them heard, and also to help humans understand their animals better, because if the animals are happy, that means then the owners are happy as well, and the partnership and relationship is just so much better when we can communicate with each other. I'm also teaching people how to connect with their animals, because it is something that you can do as well. So in my courses I do a step-by-step guiding people through how they can connect with their animals, and that is also something that is important for me, because if I can help people understand their animals and they can do it themselves, then they can go on and help other animals and people with their animals as well. So in the end we do help a lot more animals again, which is really my mission in life. Hello Kate, hello Cynthia, nice to see you on board. So also obviously bring awareness to it. A lot of people, they think it's quite silly and they don't believe in it. I'm not here to try to convince people that don't want to believe it, because if you don't want to believe it, you will always find an excuse why it doesn't work or that it doesn't work. But I had enough experience and exciting stories that I know that it does work. So I have been in a lot of radio shows as well, and the latest one, for any horse people that are here, you might know the horse movie Listening to the Horse. It's a horse documentary that came out last year, and I think it's screening again this year. So I think it starts this weekend. So if you want to go to listentothehorse.com, you can get your free movie ticket. It's a 7-series documentary where Elaine Heaney from Ireland is interviewing 70 of the best horse people, and I had the pleasure of being part of that as well, because obviously it is helping horses as well when we can talk to them and find out what's going on. So if you want to go and have a look there, you can watch the series. It's a great series, and a lot of horse riders have got back to me and they're saying that it's just absolutely amazing. And yes, Rachel's just asking whether we can communicate with animals that have passed away, and yes, that's correct, we can connect with them as well. So that is obviously a big part, and I will be talking about that later, or maybe in my next live screening. So we will definitely get to that. Thank you. So what is animal communication really? Because a lot of people might think, you know, are you a horse whisperer? Are you a behaviorist? But this is actually not what it is. It is a telepathic connection that I have with the animals. So it's from mind to mind, which means it will be over distance. So I don't actually have to meet the animals, and it is just as easy to connect with an animal that is here as it is to connect with an animal that's for overseas, for example. So I don't actually have to be with the animal, and I normally ask for a photo so I can connect with the animal, and a little bit of information as well, a little bit background information. How old is the animal? What breed is it? Obviously I'd like to know the name so I can address them properly. And so yes, Rachel, I do photo readings. And probably getting into again a bit more what I'm doing. So I'm teaching people, I'm doing readings of photos, and as Rachel's asked before, yes, we can connect with animals that have passed away. That is something that is very important, because it always leaves a lot of questions open. You know, why did the animal pass away? What happened? you know, should I have done something different? Is my animal upset with me? And all these things. And I find it brings great relief to people, and that they can finally be at peace when they can find out what is going on. And I'm really sorry to hear about the golden retriever that had to be put to sleep. That is always very sad. So it is definitely something that is very good when we can connect with them when they have passed away, because it just can bring our mind at ease when we know that we've done the right thing and they're not angry with us, and they're happy that we've sometimes they're happy with us that we had to let them go and that we helped them to cross the rainbow bridge. So telepathic communication, what can we do? So we can obviously talk to them, but they can talk to us as well. We can ask them questions, which is very important, because if you only just have a general conversation with your animal, they might just say to you what is important to them. So if you talk to a horse that is in the paddock for 23 hours, they might say, you know, I don't like my paddock friend, or I don't like the bush in the corner because it scares me. But they're probably not going to talk about the last dressage competition and why they didn't perform well. So we do have to ask questions to just get answers to what we want to know. It is very important that we have an open mind as well, and we let animals talk and tell us what they want to say. So not just ask questions, but it is also important that we can ask questions. Otherwise, we might not get the answers. They might talk about the same things, but not necessarily. Yes, we can also, Tricia, we can also talk to animals that might have run away, or we can speak to animals why they got frightened or what was going on. And also, yes, Kate, you know, if they die suddenly, why did they die? So that is definitely something that a lot of people want to know, and that we can get more information on this. And yes, definitely we can ask them whether they are angry with us, but I can tell you in general, animals are not angry with us. We love our animals, and if we might find later out that it wasn't the right decision at the time, but as long as we did at the time what we thought it was the right decision, they're happy with that, because we love our animals. We don't do things on purpose to hurt them or to harm them, so you don't need to be feeling worried that they might be angry with you or they're not happy with you, because they do everything. They know that you love them, and that is very important. And yes, missing our animals is just a big part of this. Yes, so we can ask animals questions. We can also pass on messages, so things that concern us that we would like to bring across to our animals. So that is definitely a big point as well. Going back to the conversation, the telepathic connection that we have with our animals. So the word telepathy comes from the Greek language, and it means feeling out of distance. So that is something that we do without actually being there, without using our senses. And as humans, we have been taught at school, you know, we only see what we believe, and we always have to be able to show how it's been solved and how it works. Otherwise, we don't believe it. And that is often the tricky part, that we don't believe it because we can't prove it, we can't see it. But that's how it works. So it's from mind to mind, it's over distance, and it's an ability of all beings. So humans can do it, and animals connect like that as well, with animals and with us humans as well. So how does telepathic communication work? Telepathic communication is an energy that gets exchanged. So it is something that everyone can do, and it's quite interesting because it gets translated into a message that we then understand. So, and it's quite funny because I grew up in Switzerland, so I speak Swiss German, and so if I'm in Switzerland and I live in Switzerland, I speak Swiss German all the time. I speak with my friends, and I dream in Swiss German as well. All my conversation with animals is in Swiss German, but when I come back to Australia, I speak English all the time, and then my messages come through in English again. So whatever you're used to is the language that will come through, or the messages will come through in a way that you can understand. So every person is an individual, so every person will understand and receive those messages differently. But for me is, so if I, for example, I don't know a word in the English language, I do write it down in German. So the message just gets translated to my brain in a way that I can understand it. And it does sound a bit complicated, but in the end, how do mobile phones work? No one knows. Who cares? They work, so we just do it. So it's the same, but because we can't prove it, a lot of people are a bit hesitant to trust it. But in the end, I always say you have to have a reading yourself to actually believe that, yes, it is working, because the animals, they often tell us things that no one else knows but the owners. So that is just proof enough that people go, wow, you know, there's no way you could have known that, because you can go onto someone's Facebook profile and look up photos, but you can't actually, the messages you receive, they're so specific, there's no way that I could have known that or someone could have told me, because that is just something that the owner knows and the animals know. And yes, animals, they are often, even when they pass on, they're still with us. So that is also really nice to know that they're still here. They don't just disappear. We can't see them anymore, but they are still with us. And Shannon, yes, it is definitely something we can do, Shannon, that we can ask how he's doing and whether he needs anything. These are all questions that we can ask. So when we have a conversation with them, we can ask them anything we want to know, which can be health, behavior, you know, about anxiety, why they do certain things, really anything, performance, whatever you want to know. With a horse, for example, why didn't the horse go on the float? Whatever worries you, this is things that we can ask. Okay, so messages, when they can come in, they can come in thoughts. It feels like your own thoughts, they're words, they are feelings. So you can't really say how the messages come in, because that can be in different ways. But that is telepathic communication. As I said, it is just something that the more you do it, the better you get at it. And then you know that this is how you're receiving the messages. So does telepathic communication really work? Science has got no proof that it works or it doesn't work. Of course, science, they are very much onto, you know, we need to be able to prove it to actually show that it is working. And so therefore, they find it a bit difficult to prove something like that. But also things like emotions, dreams, we haven't got proof, and science can't prove it, but it does actually, you know, we all know that it exists. We all know that we have dreams and emotions, and that is something that only you know and only you can talk about, and no one else knows your dreams and emotions. So just because science can't prove it, you can't really say it doesn't exist. And it's quite interesting, because the US Army in the 1970s, for over 20 years, they did testing in telepathic communication. So they were using telepathic people to go into, for example, factories to find out what the opposition was doing in those factories. And they were actually doing that for over 20 years, and they spent over $20 million, or I think it was even more than that, to only then say that it is not accurate enough. And I just find that quite interesting, because if you really study that for 20 years, does it really need 20 years to work out it's not accurate enough? So I'm pretty sure that there were other findings as well that they maybe just didn't want us to know, because obviously if we are able to telepathically communicate, it does give us some kind of power. So that is something that obviously they don't really want us to know. And so animal communication is exactly the same thing. It is something that we can connect with our animals. Just probably going back again to the telepathic communication. So it is something that you guys might be doing as well, and just not aware of it. And little things like your phone rings, and before you even look at the phone, you know who's calling. Or sometimes you haven't heard from a friend for 2 years, and one morning you think of him, and on that morning you get an email from him, and you think, oh, that's a strange coincidence, but this is actually not the coincidence. You did have a connection with him, and that's how you thought of him, and that's why he ended up maybe sending you an email. And that is something that happens to us all the time, and people will go, hey, it's just a funny coincidence, but it's actually not the coincidence. And animal communication is exactly the same. So animals use that form of communication to communicate with each other, but also to communicate with us. So they do that all the time. So it's just a matter of us to listen to our animals and to be able to receive their messages. And animals' messages, they can come in the form again of thoughts, words, feelings, anything like that. And we can ask them questions, as I said before, which is very important. And a lot of my clients, they say, you know, when you're going to come and see my animal? And it's always, well, I don't have to come and see your animal because I can do it over distance. And sometimes it's actually easier to do over distance, because when you see the animals, you might always just bring in your own emotions and what you see, and you're analyzing the animal. And if I don't see the animal, if I'm just working off a photo, I'm just going by the feelings and what I'm receiving from the animal. So I do actually prefer to do the readings at home, because I'm also not distracted by anything. If I go out and I see an animal, you know, there's always background noise, there's people talking, and it's loud and it's cold. And when I'm just in my bedroom, I can just focus on the animal, and I am not distracted by my own 5 senses, what I see and hear and feel. And I can really just go by what I'm receiving from the animal. And as we talked about before, we can also connect with animals that have passed away, which is a very important part of my work as well, to help people with passing, animals that are ready to go, or animals that have passed away, to find out what's going on. Yes, that's correct, Natasha. You might still see your animals even though they're not here anymore. And it's funny how even with humans, you know, all of a sudden you get a smell and it reminds you of someone that has passed away, and you think, how is this possible? Because there's no way you could be smelling that, or that you see the animals from the corner of your eyes. That's correct. So how does animal communication work, and how do I know that it does work? Again, there's no scientific proof, but in the end, I do know that it works because of the feedback I get from the owners. Because if animals tell me something, if animals tell me something and the person then can confirm that, I mean, that's proof enough, because it's not something that I could have just guessed, because every animal is just so different. You can't just give basic information. So it is quite interesting. And sometimes situations where animals say that they love the yellow flowers the owner has put on their grave, even things like that. I had a funny story talking to a horse, and the horse said to me that she does very beautiful serpentines. And when I told the owner, she was telling me, she said, oh, that's interesting. And I said, why is that? And she said, well, she's just been to a dressage competition, and her judge wrote that this was the most beautiful serpentine she had ever seen. I mean, that's just, you know, I couldn't have guessed that, no way. So that is just something that just really proves to you that it is working. And so we just have to trust that the messages we are getting from our animals, when then they tell us things that we can't prove, we do already have the proof that we had this connection with them and that it is working. We also obviously have then vets that confirm findings as well, vets and chiropractors, physios. I've got a lot of chiropractors, they say they don't know me personally, but they know my work and they know that I'm always spot on. So if people go with their animals to that chiropractor, he knows that if there's some feedback from the animals, that they can rely on that and work on those areas. And a classic example we had, again, a lot of my clients are horse people, so that's why I do bring a lot of horse examples as well. But I can talk to any kind of animal. I've even had clients asking me to communicate with their fish, chickens, goats, anything. So, but that's quite an interesting story, that I was talking to a client's horse, and this horse had some soreness, which I didn't know about. And I said to her that the horse is sore on the right-hand side in the leg. And she said, that's quite interesting, because her horse doesn't stand on the ground with the other leg. And she had the vet out, the vet couldn't find anything, and they were at that stage that they were going to retire the horse because they just couldn't find the problem. And so I connected with the horse again. I said, look, where's your pain? And again, the horse was talking about the other leg, but right up high where the two legs are connected. So I said to her, you know, go get a physio in and work on the muscles where the two legs are connected. And she did exactly that, and within 3 weeks the horse was back to normal. And the vet, obviously, if there's a lameness there and you can see that the horse is not putting any weight on the right leg, you assume that the injury is on the right leg. So no one thought that the injury could be in the other leg. So that is why it is very important that we actually talk to them, because they can tell us exactly where the pain is. Sometimes we're just looking in the wrong place. Same thing is with behaviorists as well, because sometimes an animal's behavior just doesn't tell us what's going on. And I had a interesting dog that I was talking to. This woman, she had the dog for a while, and she used to do agility with him. And one day he just stopped doing it, and they couldn't work out what was wrong with him. And he started to be aggressive, and he didn't want to have anything to do with them. So she said to me, I just want my dog back. So I connected with this dog, and I asked him what's going on. And he said to me that a year ago someone went away. And I had the feeling whether maybe she split up from her partner and there was a shift in the family. So when I spoke to her and I said, look, so what's the story? A year ago someone went away. And she said, yeah, a year ago I think they had 6 or 7 dogs. And a year ago, one of the dogs one night was passing away, and as he was dying, this other dog that they were having problems with now, he was going crazy. He just couldn't handle all the other dog leaving, and so they were just focusing on this dog, and they didn't realize the other dog was dying because he was so stressed by his friend passing away that he just couldn't cope. And all he wanted from them is to make a few little adjustments. I always say animals, they don't ask for a $7 million swimming pool. They just ask for little things. So all this dog wanted that they're nice with him. They're just being with him, not having any expectations. And if he walks away, to let him walk away, to not, chase him or put any pressure on him. And within a month, he was back to normal. So sometimes it just helps animals to talk about their issues and about their problems. And also just the intention of us wanting to connect with our animals. Already people see a big shift just when they book a reading, because the animals are so excited that someone will listen to them and that we can address their issues and talk to them. So that is obviously something that is very helpful. And we do see great results when we put in place what they ask us for. And again, it must not be something very expensive or very complicated. Animals, they often talk. They want our time. They want us to spend time with them. They want us to give them maybe a different water bowl, because the water they drink, it doesn't taste nice. So the changes we make are so little, and we see such a big improvement. And also they then see that we listen to them, and that alone already makes a big difference, because they go, wow, if I really ask them for something, they will listen and they will do it, and we will see a big change in our animals. So that is absolutely amazing when we can do that. So animal communication, what can that do? Sorry, I'm just reading Natasha's message. Yes. She wants to know Ginger, who's sitting next to her, that she's not quite sure when his time is up. And that is also something that is very important, that we can ask them how are they feeling, and do they want us to help them with that decision, and do they need help to go. And it is something that we have to talk to every animal individually. I did actually recently read a story that really upset me about a vet that suggested that with horses, as they get older, we just pick a day and put them to sleep, because otherwise they suffer. They might break a leg and they lie in a paddock and they lie in the sun or in the heat or in the cold. And so he suggested that we just make an appointment and put our horse to sleep. And that is just completely nonsense, because our animals, some of them, yes, they are ready to go. They want to go. They had enough. Some animals, they are not ready to go. So it is very important that we do talk to the animals, to every animal individually, but we can certainly not say, once a cat goes over 18, you need to put your cat to sleep. I must tell you, Natasha, my cat is 18 years old. He got bitten by a snake last November and he nearly died. And he was in hospital. He was in a humidity crib and he needed oxygen. And a lot of people said, oh, he's just a cat, let him go. And I knew that if he's fighting, I will fight with him and I'll do anything that is necessary to keep him alive. And he was in hospital for a week and he came home, and the feeling he gave me of gratitude that he was still allowed to be here was amazing. And he's still with me now. He's actually lying behind me in his bed. So he certainly wasn't ready to go. Even though he was 18 years old, he still wanted to be here, and he's still here with me now. So you can't just make that decision because an animal is old. You need to talk to an animal and find out why, are they ready? Do they still want to be? Yes, I know it is. We can't protect them from everything, but we just need to do the best we can. And it is nonsense to put animals to sleep because they could hurt themselves or because they could die. Because, animals can, your cat, my cat is 18, he can live another 5 years. And just to end his life because he's old, that's rubbish. Otherwise, we need to be starting to do the same with old people. Old people, they fall over and break a hip. And sometimes suffering is just something that is in everyday's life, in everyone's life, and we can't just prevent that by just making a decision to put animals to sleep. So yeah. Yes, Nikki, so my cat, I think he'd be turning 19 in October, and he's absolutely doing extremely well, and he's really grateful that he still can be here. I must say he's restricted now, so he can't go and play with the snakes anymore. He did not play with the snakes. I know that for a fact. He's not hearing very well anymore, so he got surprised by a snake. He was just crossing his path, and that's just what happened. So it wasn't, it was just an accident because he's been living around snakes for a long time, and he never got bitten by a snake. So, but anyway, he's still with us, and he's very excited to still be here, and he's very, very grateful that I saved his life because he still has got so much energy and life in him that he is not ready to go. So with animal communication, how can that help us? So we can understand animals better on a deeper level, which allows us to have a better life and our animals to have a better life, because obviously if they are happy, we are happy, and that's just fantastic. And we can also help them with any issues they have. So mental issues, physical issues, sometimes we don't know. We don't know why they do certain things, and we think it is a physical issue, but it might actually be a mental issue. So we just have to talk to every animal individually. We can't just say, oh, it's doing this, it could be this, because sometimes a horse might have stomach ulcers and react, in a crazy way, but it's not, and behaviorists just can't tell you that. And I don't think I was talking to you about that story about my horse. He'd been living in a yard, and my other horse, my mare, was in another yard next to him, and they'd been living there for quite a few months, and everything was fine. And all of a sudden, one day, my gelding started to run the fence and sweat up and be an absolute idiot. And all my horse people said to me, oh, he's, you need to teach him a lesson. He's being naughty. You need to punish him. He just wants to get to your mare. And I thought, okay, well, let's have a chat and find out what's going on. So I said to him, what is your problem? And he said to me, water, check my water. So I went in and had a look at his water. His water looked clean. He had a big bathtub, and it was only it was half full, but the water looked clean. And so there was no indication that there was a problem with his water. So I thought I'd take him for a ride and get him a bit tired. I took him for a ride, and as we were on the ride, he started drinking the water out of the puddle. Horses don't drink water out of puddles. So I thought, oh, there must really be something wrong with his water. So I went and checked the water again. And a few days earlier, they'd been spraying the paddock around my horse's yard with weed killer, which is obviously not really a good thing to do, but I didn't actually know at the time. So when I checked, I found a poisoned plant under the water trough. So they'd actually been putting poison into my horse's water. And the poison obviously doesn't have any color, so you just didn't know. And the only way he could tell me is by behaving like an idiot. So again, all the behaviorists were wrong, because they were just telling me that he was being naughty, which was absolutely wrong. The only way he could tell me that there was a problem was by misbehaving. And often that is what happens, that we just misunderstand our animals. And if we can actually talk to them and ask them, then we can solve those issues, because they're not big issues, they're only little things. So it's very important that we can get on top of them and just chat to them, find out why they do certain things, and then address the problem, and easily solved. Yes, so Natasha has got some 4 dogs in puppy land. Puppy land, does that mean they have passed away? I'm not quite sure. But anyway, so we can help our animals by asking questions, physical issues, mental issues. Very important that we do that. We can find problems, we can solve problems, which is quite easy most of the time, because often it's a misunderstanding and we just don't know why the problem exists. And we can also allow them to make choices. You know, you might take your dog to dog training, and your dog just doesn't like it at all. So if we can connect with them and your dog says, look, I don't really like what I'm doing, well, we can give him a choice, and we can say, okay, well, maybe we do something different, because why should we force our animals to do what we want to do? You know, it's important that we can also give them a choice. And if they think, okay, I just had a quick problem with my internet, but I think that's all solved now, so that's great. So yeah, it is important that we can give them a choice as well. So if animals don't like something, why are we forcing them? You know, I had a horse say to me, I don't like this paddock. You know, it makes him scared. So why, if we live in a house that we don't like, we're not going to stay there. So why do we expect our animals to do something that they don't like? If we can just maybe find a different paddock for them, you'll see great improvement, which can be not just how the horse behaves in the paddock, but in general. It might be better to ride from then on because it sleeps better, and also because it understands that you actually listen to him as well if he has something to say. So that's very important. So we can pass on messages as well, which is quite important too. And funny story, a client of mine, they used to go to competitions with this horse, and this horse would never go on the float. Excuse me. And she said to me, I don't know what to do. Every time we want to go somewhere, it takes us 2 hours to get this horse on the float. So I connected with this boy and said, you know, what is your problem? And the story was that he had been to a lot of different homes, and he was worried that if he goes on the float, he's not going to come back home. So I said to her, so next time you go to a competition, just explain even the day before. Tell him where you're going, what you're doing. You're going to a competition and he's coming back home with you. She rang me after the next competition and she said, took us 2 minutes. He just ran straight on the float. Because he was fine. He knew that he was going to come home. He loved his home. So he didn't want to be pushed around and go to another home. And as soon as he understood that he's coming back home, problem solved. So that's how easy it is sometimes. What animal communication can't do, we also need to talk about that. Because a lot of people come to me and say, can you please tell my dog not to chase the snake? Not a problem, I can do that. But dogs are a bit like children. So if you're in the supermarket and there's lollies everywhere, and your child knows it's not allowed to have any lollies, of course, if it sees the lollies everywhere, it's just going to be totally excited. Or if you explain to a child, don't run on the road, they understand. But if you throw a ball on the road, what's going to happen? They just run on the road because that's their instinct. So they just react without thinking. And animals do the same. So if you tell a dog, please don't chase the snake, they might understand that. But obviously, once the situation is here and he sees the snake, he'll be going, oh my God, cool, there's a snake. And he'll chase the snake anyway. So it is not something that we can control them. In the end, like kids, they are their own little beings, and it doesn't give us the right and ability to control them as such. We also can't quick fix problems. As I said before, it does help us to fix problems. But sometimes, for example, if you're scared of spiders and there's a big huntsman on your wall and I say to you, oh, don't be scared of the spider, it won't hurt you, you're still going to freak out. So animals are the same. Just because you say to them, oh, you know, don't be scared of the plastic bag, they're still going to be scared because that's their instinct. They have been conditioned to live like that because they're still in a body on this planet. And if there's something that scares them, a horse, for example, still needs to run away because that's how they survive. So it doesn't mean that we can quick fix problems, but often by explaining things, we can actually help them by changing the situation and making the situation better. We can't change their personalities. So if you would like to do, you know, if you have a cat and you would like to take your cat to cat shows, your cat might not like it. So sometimes, as I said, sometimes we might just have to say, well, okay, I'm sorry that I took you to the cat show. Maybe we can do something else together. And same with dogs as well. You know, your dog might not like agility that you're doing with him. So it is actually great if we can also take a step towards them and learn from them and say, okay, you don't like that. Well, maybe I can change and maybe we can do something different. Animal communication is also great to learn more about them, you know, learn more about their personality. And I mean, animals are just so funny. I had a horse, a white horse, and people who are not horsey, they might not know this, but a white horse is never born white. They might be born black, they might be born brown. And I was talking to a white horse and he said to me, I've got 4 white socks. And I thought, yeah, of course you've got 4 white socks, you know, you're white all over. So when I talked to the owner, I felt a bit silly to say that to her. And I said, you know, your horse told me he's got 4 white socks. And I never thought of it, but she said, well, maybe he's talking about the time before he actually was completely white. And she'd only had him for a few months, but she said she had his papers as well. So she looked up his papers and she sent me a message on the next day saying, he's really been born a chestnut with 4 white legs. So animals are just funny how they see themselves. Animals are amazing as well how they see us. So I like to talk with my animals as well to ask advice about myself because they're just amazing how they can give me advice about my situations. Even maybe if I have to go for a job interview and I can say to my animals, you know, what should I do? And I mean, they're not telling me whether I should take the job or not, but they might give me some advice, you know, how I can handle the situation and not to stress and not to be worried about. So it's really, really nice to talk to your animals about yourself as well and just have your open mind and just say, you know, what do you want to tell me about myself? Humor as well. Animals are just crack up. Some of them just make me laugh. Talking to this horse, he said to me, I am a VIH. And I said, VIH, what is that? And he said, I'm a very important horse. So, you know, they're absolutely funny. Or this other horse said to me, I'm a good weather horse, which means, you know, he only wants to be ridden in the good weather. But he said, that's okay because my rider is a good weather rider as well. And when I told the owner, she just cracked up laughing because that is exactly her. You know, as soon as it starts raining, she's like, nah, I'm not taking my horse out. And he feels the same. So, you know, that's fantastic if we can connect with them and find out that they do like the same things as us as well. Another very, very beautiful story I had was talking to a pony, and I was actually talking to all the ponies and all the horses of this family. And the pony of the little daughter said to me, tell her to hold her head up high and she's worth more than that. So when I spoke to the mother, I said, to me it sounds a bit like she's getting bullied at school. And Mom said, no way, you know, I wouldn't know about that. Absolutely not. And when she sat her children down to talk to them about what their animals had said, the daughter started to cry and she said, yes, it's true. And every day she would walk out in the paddock and tell her horse about what was going on and how upset she was at school. And so they just know and they listen to us and they help us to feel better about ourselves as well, which is amazing. And I think in that situation as well, you know, it just saved this little girl because finally the mother was aware of it and she can do something about it. And also the horse had some great advice for her that she actually believes in herself and she doesn't listen to what the other people are talking about. The other thing is also good that we can do is missing animals. So we can connect with them, we can find out why did they run away, which direction did they go, what can they see where they are now. Sometimes they might not know, you know, if they get scared, they might just run. And if you run, in the end, you've got no idea where you went and you've got no idea how you can get home. So sometimes we just have to connect with them and find out what can they see from where they are. And it was quite funny. I was talking to a dog that was lost and he showed me these big round pipes. So he was telling me that there's these big pipes and he's in those pipes. And when I talked to the owner, she said, yes, there is this park with all these big, I think they're water pipes or something. So they tried to get into these pipes, but they couldn't get in very far as humans. And obviously, yeah, you don't know. There were so many, they didn't know where to go. So he was quite scared, and we just talked to him and we said, look, you just need to come out because we can't find you in those pipes. So please come out so someone can find you. And he did come out in the end, and he was sitting next to a pole that had a poster of him on it saying missing dog. So someone picked him up and took him to the vet. So that was amazing. That was really great to see. I mean, it's not always that easy with missing animals. Sometimes they don't want to be found. Sometimes we just can't find them. But obviously, if we can find out where they went, what they can see, then we have got absolutely a bigger chance in finding our animals. So that's definitely a great tool. And as we were talking about before, old animals, animals that have passed away, definitely a great tool, connecting with them, finding out how are they feeling. A friend of mine in Western Australia, she has got, it's some kind of sheepdog, and he's 14. No, it's a girl, sorry. She's 14 and she can hardly walk. She's got arthritis and she's very sore. And connecting with her, she said, I block my pain out. Animals are actually quite pain tolerant, you know. They don't whinge about it like we do. Oh, you know, I'm sore today, I'm sore here, I'm sore there. They just put up with it, and as they get older, it's just something in everyday life, you know. You might get a bit slower and a bit more stiff, and you can't run so fast anymore, but they just accept that. And so her dog was just saying to us, look, it's okay for me, I'm just blocking the pain out, I don't feel it. And my friend was having her on these strong painkillers, and she wasn't quite happy about it because it was affecting her stomach. So once the dog told us that she was fine, she took her off the painkillers, and there was absolutely no change. So now she's feeling a lot better, and the dog is absolutely happy and still going very strong. So we can't just say because an animal is in pain they want to be put to sleep. So we actually need to talk to them to find out if they're ready to go. So this is, I think we're nearly to the end of it. So yeah, I think we'll probably leave it for now, and then next time I'll talk a bit more as well how you can start making improvements for your animals. Sometimes it can be hard to connect with your own animals because we're so close to them. I'm the same. If my cat goes missing, he might just, you know, go to the neighbor's girlfriend cat, and I already see him running over on the side of the road because I'm so worried about him, and I'm just a worried mum. So sometimes our emotions can get into the way. So if I've got issues with my animals, I get a friend of mine to communicate with them. That can help sometimes because we're just too connected with them. But I will talk in the next session as well what we can do to start in everyday life, how we can make improvements, and how we can get a better connection, how we can communicate with them clearly, and what we can do to have them feeling happy and healthy. So yeah, it would be great if you join me again next week. And we will also, I don't know whether that will be next time, I will also be doing some readings. And if you would like to get some readings done, or you want some more information, feel free to visit my website or send me an email, contact me on Facebook, and I'm happy to have a chat or just to give you some information. And yeah, if you want to book in a reading, feel free to contact me. That will be great. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you very much. If there's anything else, let me know. And it is fantastic to have seen so many people that are absolutely besotted by their animals and want to do everything right to have their animals happy. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week. Bye.